Hi, hello, salutations. Saiyans are near extinct by the time we know about them in Dragon Ball. The only representative that survived Planet Vegeta's destructions at the hands of Frieza are all male. Let's round them up real quick. We have Vegeta, duh, his brother Tarbal, who was exiled because he was too weak or something, Broly, who was exiled because he was too strong or something, and with him came his father, Paragus, and an unfortunate Saiyan that could have also been part of this group if the two didn't cannibalize him. Back to Vegeta, there was his crew that was comprised of Nappa, an elite warrior, Raditz, who climbed the ranks to become elite adjacent at a young age, and two unnamed Saiyans who either died in a later expedition, died to Vegeta for being lesser than elite, died by Frieza trying to keep Saiyans' numbers low, or maybe all three. Point is, they died. Besides Broly and Paragus, not all Saiyans known to be living, but there was also Saiyans that just kinda escaped, like Onyo, a lone Saiyan who probably joined Frieza's army after the events of Super, because I mean, where the hell was he before? And finally, our 8th Saiyan, Kakarot, aka Goku, was sent as a baby to Earth to survive, and who did not only that but apparently repopulated the Saiyan race that dwindled from 8 to 6 to thousands again in the future, as a lot of Earthlings have Saiyan genes hundreds of years after Dragon Ball in the future. Toriyama imagined for Dragon Ball Online. I guess all you need to repopulate is a couple of Saiyans and a compatible race. But let's go back a bit. Kakarot was part of the Saiyans who Frieza didn't know existed. Only the Galactic Patrol knew and tried to kill him even. But fortunately he didn't succeed. But my point is, nobody but Raditz knew that Kakarot was out there, which recently may be a bit suspicious. See, Raditz tells us about how capable Saiyans are sent as adults to cleanse planets on their own, or as teams, but basically as mercs, right? While weaker Saiyans are sent to weaker worlds where they either succeed or die unceremoniously. So, like, this was common practice. This was a thing that they did, sending children far away from Vegeta for 20 years or more with a chance of survival. Do you see where I'm going with this? The fact is that, while this explains why Goku got to Earth safe and sound, it also contributes to what I realized was basically a plot hole. You must have questions or answers, please stay put to the end of the video because I will try to address everything here. How could Goku be the only one among this tradition of sent children to survive? There should be plenty of Saiyans around, wouldn't there be? To understand if this is an actual plot hole or not, we're going to have to work with what we have and try and figure out how this worked, and either if there is a reason we never see them again, or if this is an actual hole in the narrative. First off, maybe these cases are few enough that we can realistically call their death an acceptable probability. Unlikely, but not impossible. Well, what do the Saiyans say? It seems that lower class Saiyans, and most of all the bottom of the barrel, are who are sent to these weaker and less important worlds. So not that big of a Saiyan population, right? Wrong. Toriyama has stated that the elite is like a handful of people, like actually, and Vegeta is a lone super elite, so among the thousands of Saiyans that populated planet Vegeta, more than 99.9% were lower class Saiyans. Suddenly, the bottom of the barrel is pretty vast, when all the Saiyans available are weaker than Raditz, who managed to squeeze into the elite squad. We can't make estimates, but it would be disingenuous to say only a few Saiyans were sent as children. There was probably 100 or more of them that qualified as weak enough to be sent to these planets, and this fact just gets worse when you realize that Saiyans don't really check on them, it seems. Raditz just barely remembered Kakarot as a valuable potential ally for a sizable world to conquer. It was a coincidence that there was one more Saiyan around that could join Vegeta's crew for this mission, and Goku was already a married father by the time Raditz came, and it wasn't even to check on him. So the Saiyans are at least like left alone until late adulthood on the mission of eradication, if they're not simply forgotten about it and considered dead as long as they don't come back themselves with a planet to sell. After all, Goku forgot his mission, but the other child soldiers didn't. They didn't know to return to planet Vegeta after the world they were in was wiped. That is, if they even intend to return to Vegeta. Like Tarbal seemed pretty fucking satisfied with the life he had with his wife until he needed Vegeta's help. And yeah, also, Vegeta never checked on him either. Not to say he's part of the Saiyans we're talking about here, but it shows how they work. This leads to the totally acceptable thought that some of the Saiyan children were also peaceful, not a lot of them, but a handful at least, that didn't care for the eradication of their new homeworld and just chilled the way Tubble did. After all, the planets they were sent to were weaker, yes, but also kind of unimportant. Like, Earth would have never been a target, it seems, and while yes, Bardock sent him there for that specific reason, Raditz doesn't know that. And that is an important distinction. While yes, Goku is a special case, for Raditz, who should be pretty knowledgeable in the matter, it seemed totally normal. He interpreted the news of Goku's departure as, oh, okay, he was sent off because he was too weak, protocol, whatever, what a loser. So, not only are a lot of Saiyans probably sent as children in the hundreds bracket, not only do a lot of them have a chance to survive, not only are they left to their own devices by the Saiyans until they themselves returned, but also a few must have just never returned of their own volition, or their ship broke during the conquering of the planet, things like this. So, we're not well set. The probability of a 30-something Saiyan with a family being alive somewhere during Vegeta's destruction is not nearly zero. In fact, it's high enough that at the very least tens, ranging from 4 to 30-something, whole-ass generations of Saiyan children were still on duty when Vegeta exploded. Frieza ordered the Saiyans back to the planet, but Goku didn't have a scouter, and why would you stay near your ship? As a child Saiyan, you probably don't have any obligations except to wipe out the natives, so that wouldn't have brought them back to the planet. They still had their mission. The weak planets are their only threat too. The Galaxy Patrol only dared to follow Goku because Vegeta was just busted and that the baby seemed out of Frieza's business, which was green light for the patrol. For the hundreds of other Saiyans, they will probably stay out of it as it is Frieza's business, and they don't fuck with Frieza. The more we dig, the more it seems like an actual plot hole. We keep finding reasons why there should logically be a whole bunch of Saiyans just biding their time, conquering their world, having a family, and some would be comfortable enough to search for other Saiyans in the universe after the death of Frieza, probably. Okay, so, is that a plot hole in Dragon Ball? After all, there are a few. That can happen. Dragon Ball is not immune to plot holes, it already has some. While yes, technically it is, but you can patch it out pretty easily with a few logical steps that are totally not out of reach in my opinion. But since it was never spelled out to us, it also technically falls under headcanon. Do with that what you will. But I find this answer pretty reasonable. And for this, we need to start at the guy who started it all, Goku. The one who introduced us to the concept of a child Saiyan, without ever an explanation to why there weren't any survivors like him. The answer lies in what makes him special. Yes, he bumped his head. Yes, there was a moon on the planet. Yes, he had a caretaker. But before that, he was sent off the books. Not as a child soldier, he was sent in secret. Raditz only assumed he was sent as such because that's how he interpreted his parents' message, that allowed Kakarot to live, and not for the others. To patch this plot hole, we have to assume child Saiyans are registered somewhere, who they were and where they go. May it be simple tradition, may it be to not send two Saiyans on the same planet by accident, or may this be part of Frieza's administration process. Now, we know there were a bunch of Saiyans across the galaxy who, unlike their peers, were just on their own when the rest was being grouped up for a genocide, which then Frieza must have gotten busy, checking the register and sending squads to wipe out the remaining Saiyans themselves. Yes, this is dark, but Dragon Ball doesn't shy away from dark stuff happening and then just not being talked about or taken with much gravitas. Take Grandpa Gohan's death, for example. A child Goku woke up with the mangled corpse of his adoptive father near his house after he blacked out, not knowing what happened, if not that a big-ass monkey killed him. And now that little boy had to grieve and learn how to live on his own. That's dark, and that happened. It's just never focused upon. So yes, in my opinion, the Saiyan children were registered and Frieza disseminated them one by one until there wasn't any more left. Now, a few could have escaped. Hell, a few could have had a flawed registration. So in the end, there is still a high probability that a handful of Saiyans are still around. But this explains how it isn't a really noticeable amount, and how they're probably just living in secret here and there. Vegeta's crew wouldn't have been made aware and probably would never have thought about it since they were so self-centered on their own elite class, and Goku survived the process because he wasn't registered, since he was sent off the books for him to survive by Bardock and Guinea. Reddits that misunderstood this never thought about it again and brought it up when they needed another Saiyan, and the rest is history. Now, this is an answer I can get behind. While it's dark, I feel like it's just a reasonable turn of events that answers to this question, not perfectly of course. There must still be a few Saiyans isolated somewhere, but at least they remain nearly extinct, per se. I'm also a little surprised the franchise never took advantage of this. This tradition is really just looked over to explain Goku's survival, but it implies so much more. We could have gotten a movie about a child-sent Saiyan. Hell, it could have been Turles or Charlotte or Broly. Any Saiyans created by the franchise could have simply been a child soldier that was never caught. Weird how they never did anything with that. It seemed like such an easier explanation to the repopulation of the Saiyans that, oh yeah, Goku and Vegeta's genes are strong enough to create a superpopulation of light Saiyans on Earth too. Anyway. Saiyans were always meant to be this pseudo-tragic species. They were proud and doomed and scattered across the stars like embers from a dying fire. And when you really sit with it, it makes sense that the ones we know aren't the whole story. Not every Saiyan died in a single burst of ki. Some were just forgotten, missed, lost on quiet backwater worlds, growing up, building lives, and maybe never knowing what happened to their people. And that's part of the charm of Dragon Ball. There's history there, intentions, systems, and sometimes the simplest explanation fits the world better than Toriyama forgot. After all, Toriyama was pretty lazy himself, it is well known, but his laziness was part of his genius. A lot of the great things in Dragon Ball happened because Toriyama got a bit lazy and had to come up with something smart to explain something. So, this is totally in the realm of possibilities here. But what do you think? Are there hidden Saiyans still out there? Is this a neat patch, or did I just write fanfiction? And which Saiyan do you think could still be out there in the corner of the universe? I remember when Broly happened, when Broly was made canon to Dragon Ball Super. A lot of speculation arose to, maybe Cooler is canon, maybe Bojack can be canon. But like, this technically opens the door to a few of the non-canon Saiyans to be canon. Unfortunately, Toriyama is dead. So we can never have that. It could have happened. This would have been a sound explanation. Unfortunately, he's dead. Anyway, let me know. I read everything, and trust me, I love diving too deep into this kind of things, and I have no choice but to read you since there is so little of you. Please subscribe. If you enjoyed this and you're into Dragon Ball lore, world building, characters, and those weirdly little unanswered questions that somehow makes the universe richer, there's a lot more coming. We've only scratched the surface. For now though, well, my hot chocolate is perfectly heated up and mixed, so I'll catch you in the next one, hopefully. This has been Where Are the Other Saiyans by the Mayor. See ya, goodbye, farewell. I'm thirsty.